The biggest gift you can also give is not only a monetary gift, but obviously the gift of financial education.
It may be years before your grown child makes a major purchase like a home, but if you've dreamed of helping make it happen, the time to start planning is now. A thoughtful gifting strategy for the next generation comes with advantages that many families don't know about. So today, we'll be talking through those strategies and how planning can benefit the whole family in the future. Hello, and welcome to Money on Your Mind from Edelman Financial Engines. I'm Michael Liersch, a behavioral scientist, financial planner, and your chief planning officer at EFE. Thanks for joining us for a conversation about how people are feeling about money, what they're wrestling with, and how financial planning can help you straighten things out. Today, I'm joined by Daniela Erman. Daniela, welcome to Money on Your Mind.
Hey, Michael, thanks so much for having me today.
So, Daniela, I know you're coming off of a cold. You have young family members in the house. Why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of your
Yeah.
personal life, because listeners love to hear that, and then tell us about your journey to becoming an excellent financial planner as I know you.
Thanks, Michael. Yes, I have a almost year and a half year old son. And as you know, when they're in daycare, kind of whatever they catch kind of goes through the kids and it gets to the family. So I am recovering from a cold here. So appreciate that. I've been a planner with EFE for almost 4 years now. But prior to that, I've actually been in individual financial planning for almost about 6 years. And prior to that, I did more of a corporate financial planning in kind of the healthcare industry prior to that. So kind of a decade of real planning here. And it was a bit of an unusual journey, I would say, because I was originally considering being a physician at some point. I went to Johns Hopkins and I came back home. I'm a Southern California native and just really kind of found myself at a little bit of a crossroads after not getting in a program that I wanted to get into. But at that time, I was managing a practice, doing the financial planning for maximizing growth in this business for a while. And I was like, hey, this is a really good skill set I've had, and an opportunity presented itself where I was able to join another firm and put those skills to use. And that's kind of how I got shifted from kind of a corporate health financial planning into actually individual financial planning, which I love. I love helping people. I love their stories. I love, I guess, being the money doctor on that end of things, kind of helping them in a different way now, kind of in the client relationship.
Well, I guess we would have all been lucky no matter which career path you chose, but we're certainly lucky at EFE that you decided on this one to be this financial doctor. And also, I know your clients just adore you and really appreciate all of the great advice. And we're excited to be able to share that with our listeners writ large here. And so let's get into this topic, which is a pretty hot one right now, around gifting and gifting
Yeah.
to family members, whether that, we covered it a little bit at the top of the episode, whether that's helping them buy a home, or get educated, or other firsts like buy cars, or, just traditional tax aware gifting like annual exclusion gifts or direct payment for education. 529s. There's just so much out there, Daniela. Please,
Yep.
please, please help people think about how they can either get started or get back on the right track when it comes to gifting to family members, whether they're a parent or a grandparent. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I think, it's a really common topic. I think when I originally kind of started the industry, a lot of it was just kind of retirement, not majority is retirement successful, make sure I'm on a retirement plan. Now it's more of a conversation. Hey, while I'm planning for retirement too, how do I make sure I can, gift to my kids and help them be successful at the same time and see that benefit? There's a lot of misconceptions, I think, though, when it comes to gifting and what the implications
But
are.
before you get to
So I
that,
just want
you
to,
said something really important I want our listeners to hone in on. And I just
sure.
caught it, which is you basically have seen a trend shift then from, focusing on retirement assets and then giving things after people pass away to giving those same people money in life so they can see the outcome or the implications of those gifts. Did I catch you right here, Daniela?
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely, I think I've seen more of that shift now. Is that a lot of people are, feeling settled and accomplishing their financial goals while they're working with me and other planners. And now we're seeing this conversation come up a lot more, where it's, hey, I have this goal now that's changed, because obviously our financial plan does change over time.
Sure.
And now that I'm in this space, I want to give more now to my kids and my grandkids and see them enjoy that and help them. Maybe it's accomplishing a goal of starting their kids are wanting to start their business. Their kids are wanting to move into a home that maybe they just haven't had enough saved for a down payment now. So how do I help them accomplish that? That's becoming a more and more often growing conversation, to make sure that that they're helping their family, and obviously I think celebrating the success they've had financially and sharing that with their families now. That's really important.
That's
And I'm all about
amazing.
I'm all about family.
So Daniela, that's pretty extraordinary because you think about the American dream and people who've worked so hard all their lives, and they get to actually not only enjoy the fruits of the labor for themselves, but they can help their family members accomplish maybe more than they did, or at least get a better head start. How
Yep,
would one
absolutely.
start thinking about the best way to evaluate and then get started on a gift to another human being, and maybe see the benefits of that in life? What does that look like? What are the consideration sets?
So I think it's really starting with the goals that not only see they want to accomplish or benefit, for this person that they're giving money to. Understanding, okay, their age, impact of someone that's under 23. What could gifting them money make sense? Are they at an age where they can make reasonable financial decisions with this money? In addition to that, if there's any caveats that they want to include, like if someone, wants to make sure that if they're giving money to a niece or nephew, that they accomplish a certain, college degree or something. Like if there's a stipulation, they want to make sure that they're supporting, someone to make sure they're still working towards those goals, not just getting money and kind of leaving maybe some future plans on the shelf because now they have these funds. But also, I think just really considering overall long-term financial plans. So maybe it's structured gifting that they want to start a little bit at a time, see how this is going and being successful, to make sure that they're contributing to a goal and then seeing that benefit, but also make sure that the people that are getting these funds are also working to their own goals to make sure they're financial successful. So
So let's use a specific example, and one that often comes up is either helping someone get started with rent or a home, and education. Let's call it funding and planning, which you and I have talked a bit about before this episode. Especially as borrowing factors change for college and all those things. So can you cover those two topics and kind of set the frame given those factors that you just brought up, these age and motivation and expectations around the money?
right. I think there's still a lot of financial literacy that needs to happen for the younger generation. That's absolutely something that I'm seeing too. And also a conversation that I'm having with a lot of clients about getting their kids in to kind of learn the basic financial planning 101. Where do I start? I mean, you'd be surprised how many people don't actually know what a checkbook looks like or how to write a check or found their routing number. So it makes sense to give them some education on basic financial planning on where their money should be as they start on a new career, or maybe they're just leaving undergrad and going into grad school, but are earning some money now with whatever they're doing. And so being conscious of the age, because you want to make sure that if you're gifting money, that they're financially literate, or at least know a little bit about financial planning. But also from a tax perspective, if they're under the age of 24, so there's some specific tax implications there that you want to be aware of. But I think the main thing is also just the age, and making sure that the person that's receiving these funds or gifts are really going to be making conscious decisions, that you want to make sure that that money is being used the right way. Um, and then with regards to college funding or 529s, there's obviously some of the changes with, being able to use 529 now for Roth. But there's ways with the gifting strategy that you can actually super fund a 529 ahead of time, if that maybe hasn't been done for the
So tell
person
us
that you
about
want to receive
super
these
funding. Well,
benefits.
first, let's take a step back and talk about
Sure.
529s. So 529s are essentially, like if we were just to use plain language, an educational
College savings
trust that you
plan.
can set up for a beneficiary. Would you agree
Right.
with that characterization?
Yeah, college saving plan.
Okay.
Yeah, basically. Mhm.
Excellent. So we have a 529. And when you talk about super funding, what does that mean exactly?
Sure. So, a couple things for it. So, 529 college saving plan, you can contribute, for from a gift perspective, you can actually super fund a 529. That means you can actually give up to 5 years, 5 years worth of annual gifts. So, if your typical, gifting strategy, is like, I think it's $19,000 for this year. In 2026, this actually allows an individual to contribute, $95,000,
A
or
lot of
a
money.
married couple,
A lot of
yeah,
money.
or a married couple be able to contribute up to $190,000 to a 529 plan for an individual. And that's, without having to file a gift tax return that allows them to super fund a 529 for an individual. So it's a considerable amount of gift that someone can help, even accomplish those further goals for 529 college planning, that can be used for K to 12 expenses as well as college expenses, that can be, hugely beneficial to the person that receives it. And the great thing about 529s, of course, now, for planning for the future is, I get the additional question is, okay, if I super fund this 529, what if the person decides not to go to school? And or not, they don't use all the funds. Some of those, the education now, the 529 can be approved for certain certification programs, which is great. I think it's important to give that opportunity for people that are doing trades. That's amazing. But also, down the line, if there's any access, it's a great way to help someone set up for their future for retirement planning. It's the last thing that a lot of people think of when they're right out of college, but that's the best time to start thinking about the future, is really retirement planning.
So then let's talk about homes or paying for rent. It's you know this with our client base and with a lot of individuals out there who are thinking of seeing again the all their hard work pay off for younger generations, especially with home prices so expensive, so competitive in some cities, especially in suburban areas to buy a house. Uh, What's the advice you'd give on helping someone out in that domain with either rent or home purchases?
So, like kind of we started talking a little bit earlier, Michael, about structured gifting and understanding the goals. Obviously, really getting to financial planning. Like, we can, say, okay, we want to help give X amount for a down payment, but okay, let's talk about, how maybe, Joe and Sally, if there's a couple that we're gifting money to, how are their finances? Are they working? Are they both working? How are they earning? We want to make sure, if we're talking about gifting them money into a home, that it's a home that they can also afford,
Mm.
right? So, maybe we can give it a certain amount of money, but also something that they can afford to manage, because property taxes and all the other things that come with it are something that we want to kind of keep in the back of our heads, to make sure that we're obviously, gifting this money in a prudent way, making sure it's going to a home that they ideally want to be in, but also can manage their finances on their own once they're kind of set and on their way, as new homeowners with this gifted money. So it really kind of gets into the nitty gritty details there, but that's conversations we have with clients all the time, and just, I mean, people all the time about these details that maybe questions we don't often think about. We think about the traditional, okay, X amount for a down payment, 20%, whatever that might be. We want to get a little bit more into details to make sure that we're covering all the bases there.
So there's a lot in what you're saying. How do you avoid then if you make that gift? The first question is you make that gift of that down payment from then becoming almost like an ongoing support system for that individual or couple who you were really just intending on helping out them out with the initial purchase. How do you avoid that up front?
So I think it's a good, important conversation to start with, is sitting down and making it clear kind of the expectations of your gift, being honest with the amount that you can obviously afford to give or want to give, and kind of setting that outline ahead of time. This is a conversation, maybe it can feel a little uncomfortable, but it's an important conversation to have, because you want to set those expectations up front and obviously ensure that, everything's clear, especially when it comes to gifting money. And I think most people find that, the person that's receiving this money is obviously very grateful, but also it's money that they didn't expect. So they're just, grateful to have that conversation, lay out the details of what you plan. But also, I think important to make sure that they have a basic understanding, like we kind of touched on a little bit earlier, was, on financial literacy, making sure that they understand, how to financially plan for themselves with this money and what makes sense, and understand that it's got an end date at some point, right? If that's the case. So it's just maybe I think really outlining the goals and the timeline and being clear with the expectations of the gift strategy to make sure we're not kind of falling into this pitfall of an extended time where we're just giving money continuously, or we're hopefully at some point not dreading a call from this person that we've gifted money to. So I think really setting the expectations and being clear, that defines the gift, and I think gives it a timeline and a deadline essentially.
So as a behavioral scientist, we call the kind of unexpected ongoing support or asks for money in this context one-time ongoing gifts.
You're
So
right.
I hope everyone kind of gets the joke of that one. Like, oh, I'm just going to help you out, bail you out this one time. And then it happens over and over and over again. So we want to avoid that. So I'd like two follow-up questions. So then if I only have one child, but some people have multiple children and fair in their mind is equal. How do you kind of set up this framework, especially for honestly college education and home purchase, so you don't overextend yourself by overcommitting to that first, let's say, benefactor of your gifting strategy, and almost overextend yourself if you have two, three, four others, children or grandchildren that you're going to give to, and then you might have, maybe even unexpected family members emerge here that will want the same things. What's your advice around that topic?
So that's a great question. I actually had a conversation with someone. They have three kids. They want to give X amount of money for each of them, and then they're like, "Oh, but we have seven grandkids, so not everyone has the same amount of kids. How do we help plan and make it reasonable or safe, or not safe, but equal in that aspect, where we're not seen as giving more to one person than the other?" But I think it really comes down
Just to make
to
that clear,
just
because maybe one area of the family, there are five grandchildren, and the other area, there's just two, right? So that,
correct.
okay.
Right. Right. Like kind of, maybe one kid has two, and then the other one, has the three kids. So it's really, kind of determining the balance. Let's determine what is equal at this point, kind of look at their situations. But some people, they know that the child that's doing really, really well and is off their own, doing highly successful may not need the gift as much as them. So they're actually willing to have that conversation and explain, hey, I'm trying to help, I'm trying to help Bobby get into a house, whatever it is. And then, and either like, my kid didn't actually give me that much pushback on that, because they understand, hey, they need the help. You help me, at some point down the line, and it's not a big deal for me at that time. So I think there's a little bit of understanding on that aspect. But I think from trying to be clear, I think if you try to keep it as even as possible, that will help, I think, give people the peace of mind when they're gifting, to feel like they're not being overly unfair to one person or the other. But also at some point, if someone needs more help, having that conversation with the two other children would be reasonable, and just explain, hey, we're just trying to get them in the house. You guys both have your own homes. Let's just help them, kind of achieve that goal too.
What is one mistake that you see clients, people in general, make on this topic of giving, gift giving in life?
So not having an understanding of the goals, of what they want to do with this money or where it's going. Most people just make the biggest mistake is not understanding how to give in a structured way, and understanding just the small details that are actually easy to accomplish and get their goals, with the gifting completed. So that's kind of I think the biggest mistake is people don't understand, and in giving the structure around it, really understanding the goals of what they want to do them with the money, having their own expectations laid out before they decide on the gifting plan from there.
And then in terms of our last question that we actually had our most popular episode on, thousands of listeners on this one, which is, what is the number one thing that you feel everyone should consider right now when it comes to this idea of gifting?
Start earlier. I mean, while you can and see that benefit for your family, it's such a it's a great thing to do and help people accomplish their goals. And I think the biggest gift you can also give is not only a monetary gift, but obviously the gift of financial education. Don't put off your children or your beneficiaries interacting with the financial planner or your financial planner, because it's a huge benefit for them to start educating themselves now. That's a gift in itself. That proper education lays the foundation, and that proper partnership with the financial planner lays that foundation for success for the gift that you will give them in the future. So that's really, important. I say do that now. That's something that everyone should be doing.
All right. Well, Daniela, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. And I really appreciate you joining Money on Your Mind.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much, Michael.
That's everything we have for today. This has been Money on Your Mind. Thanks again to financial planner Daniela Erman for joining me. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. I'm Michael Liersch from Edelman Financial Engines. Thanks for listening.